Okay, part two. So if f and g are inverse functions, then these are the things that are true. G of x equals f to the negative f to the negative one of x. If xy is a point on a graph of x, then yx is a point on g of x. And with inverse functions, all of the x and y values are switched, every single one, no matter how small it is. Okay. And a continuous function will only have an inverse function if it has strictly increasing or strictly decreasing. Okay. Meaning that I have set a restriction so that that original function has passed the horizontal line test, right? Therefore, I'm not repeating any x values and there are no repeating y values. That's why those restrictions exist. Okay. So those are things that must be true. So when we look here, we have this table and we should be comfortable enough to be able to evaluate from a table. Are we comfortable enough to be evaluated from the table? I believe we are. So we're going to start off kind of quick, and then we're going to work our way up to the inverse part of it. All right. It says here we have function f of x. Oh, it refers to g. That means you are using the inverse of f of x. Does that make sense? So we have f of x, and g of x is its inverse. Got it? All right. Starting off simple with what we should be able to do. So if I ask you for f of 0, where do we go first? F of 0. And f of 0 gives us what? 1. So now we're at f of 1. F of 1 gives us, what does it give us? Everyone, what does f of 1 give us? Negative 1. I need you to be able to say that. If you can't say it, that means you don't see it and you don't know why we're doing it. Okay? All right. Do we understand why it's negative 1? Okay. All right. G of negative 3. It's talking about the inverse. Because it's talking about the inverse, I'm not going to x, I'm going to y. Okay. G is the inverse. So we're going to y. So I'm looking for when does my y equal negative 3? And my y equals negative 3 at this point, right? And what is the x that made it? 4. So g of negative 3 equals 4. Let's try it again to make sure we understand. G of 6. G is my inverse, so I'm going to the y. Okay? And what does going to the y and going to 6 give me? Negative 3. Make sense? Okay? All right, what about g of negative 1? G of negative 1 gives me 1. So now I'm going to g of 1. What does g of 1 give me? 0. Okay? Now we're in composition notation. So we have f of inverse composed of f at negative 2. Remember, for composition notation, you work your way to the left, right? So I have negative 2 first. So I'm going to find f of negative 2. What is f of negative 2? 3. So now I'm looking for the inverse of 3. What is the inverse of 3? Negative 2. Because it's the inverse, that means I start at the y. Okay. And then here again, we have f inverse negative 3. Inverse means I'm going to start at the y. And what do I get? 4. Okay. How we feeling? Good? We all are seeing how we're bouncing around between the two. Okay. Do you think that's going to change just because I have a graph? Probably not. It doesn't. Okay. It does not change. The process does not change. The only difference is that instead of starting at the x-axis, you're starting at the y-axis. So when we look here, we have the graph of k, and k is from negative 4 to 11. And k inverse represents the inverse of k. What is the minimum value of k of x equals negative 3? Wait, where's that? I didn't write that. Never mind. That's the old ones. So what is the minimum value of k of x? What is the minimum value of the inverse? So what is the minimum value of our k of x? currently. I told you out. Minimum value of k of x. This is k of x already. What is its minimum value? Remember, value is the y, -3. So the minimum value of k of x is, what would be the minimum value of our inverse? If I'm talking about the inverse, that means my minimum value depends on the minimum x value of my current function. So what is the minimum x value? -4. So for my inverse, its minimum value would be -4. And that's because that's my current smallest x value. Does that make sense? Yes? All right. Okay, remember, you guys said it doesn't change just because it's a graph, right? So if I ask you for k inverse of 6, what do I get? I get what? 11. Okay. Inverse of 6 means I'm going to start at 6 and I'm asking, where do I go? And where does it end up at? 11. So k inverse of 6 is going to be 11. Do we see that? Okay. Let's try it again. What is k inverse of 4? 6. Because I have to start on the y and go to the x. Make sense? Yes? All right. Remember, you said, guys, it wasn't going to be different. It's not different. You got it. All right. So on this one, what would be our the maximum value of our inverse? Just so our max value of our inverse has to be the max what of our current function. Has to be the current max x value of f of x. So what is our current max value of our f of x? 8. So our max value of our inverse would be 8. Does that make sense? X's and Y's are switching when you're doing the inverse. But if all I have is my original, I have to think about it in terms of that. All right. What is inverse of 3? I need everybody to answer. I only heard 2 people. That was your hint. Everybody say 2. When I go to 3, where am I at? 2. Inverse of 1. 3. Yes? Okay. What would be the domain of my inverse? It would be the range of my. So what is my domain of my inverse? -3 to 7. Yay? Are we getting it? All right, because we're going to combine tables and graphs. What? You see it on your paper, so don't act shocked and surprised. You saw it coming. It was right there. Okay. Well, surprise. Here we go. We have a table and a graph to analyze at the same time. All right. Graph of G, our domain is from -3 to 10. Yes. And then graph of our table H of X, its domain is not it's not a continuous domain, it's a discrete domain. So we have specific points that we can use for H of X. All right. So really quick, if I have G H of X, G H of 6, what do I get? H of 6 is? So now I need G of 10. What do I get? -1. Good job. All right, now we have h of 0. What do we get? 3. I have inverse of g of 3. What do I get? Good job. You're doing it. All right. H inverse of -1 g of 8. So where do I start first? G of 8. What is g of 8? And then inverse h of 0. -1. All right, here we go. Inverse of h composed of inverse of g at -1. Good job. Which would be 6. And you did it. Yay! You're geniuses. Was it terrible? No, it was not.